Frank's over here looking at corned beef and
Yeah, I
cabbage.
don't need
Okay,
to be
we're
looking at
back.
corned beef and cabbage. Yeah.
We're back. We're back live on. We're back live on Facebook talking with retired Lieutenant Colonel Jay Land from Chattanooga via, Virginia. I know, but let's get to Korea, Jay,
Okay.
because that's why we're here. How many years did you spend in Korea?
Almost 3 years on this last tour, but the job before I ended up in Korea, I was in a position where I was managing forces for the 20th Suburban Command, which owns all the bomb squads in the Army and all the operational chemicals. So I found myself in Korea probably every 3 months.
Yeah.
I'd go over there for 3 or 4 weeks at a whack and come back. And, I spent the first 20 some odd years avoiding Korea with every fiber of my body. But
Now, why is that?
well, you hear bad things about Korea, and the easiest way to make E4 or specialist in Korea is to go over there as sergeant because you're probably going to get busted. There's a lot of trouble you can get into. It's cold. I've never been as cold as I was in Korea. Never that cold.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. And, I've got an uncle that fought in the Korean War. And when you get over there and you get your feet on the ground and you see the sheer granite cliffs that these guys had to maneuver up and down and get around just so they had all the food, the fuel, the ammunition they needed, and the bitter cold, and then in the summer, just the absolute sweltering heat. It absolutely gave me a whole new level of respect for our Korean War veterans. Those guys really, really suffered, and they didn't have all the neat gear that we have today. We have the best supplied, best equipped military on the face of the earth. We got cold gear that you go out and you might be just a little bit chilly. But when you think back 50, 60 years ago, and you know that these guys, the only thing between them and minus 20-degree temperatures and 16 inches of snow is just a couple of light layers of cotton, and they're in the middle of a firefight somewhere, you just really gain an appreciation. And I had the privilege a few months ago, back in November, I attended church with my dad down at his home church in Ringgold, and they had a Marine there that was a survivor of the Choson Reservoir battle. And that was truly one of the most horrific battles our Marine brothers ever had to fight through. So to be a member of the Frozen Chosen, and no disrespect here, but that man looked probably 105, and come to find out he was only 83. Wow. And my dad's like, why does he, my dad's almost 80, and my dad is fit and spry and runs around, but he's like, why is he? I'm like, Dad, you just don't understand what that man went through 60 years ago. I guarantee you that time 60 years ago took 20 years off his life easy.
I bet.
Yeah.
Probably aged him quick.
Yeah.
If he wasn't grown up, he was grown up when he left there. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you get to South Korea.
I do.
And by this time you're married, correct or not?
Yep. Kelly and I got married a couple of years after I got back from Iraq for the last time. And I took her over there. And I got to tell you, you wanted something fun to watch. My wife had never really traveled a lot out of the country. I had been living and working in Mexico on and off with a previous job, working with the Mexican Army. So I brought her down to Mexico and spent a few days. But Korea, in Mexico, it's not quite as much of a culture shock. You hear Spanish, pretty regularly here. It's a little bit, I think, more normalized for Americans than Korea. But you get to Korea, it's much like New York City in that you've got major neighborhoods. So you really get the feeling of like Brooklyn, the Bronx, etc. That's kind of how Seoul is. Each of the neighborhoods has its own vibe. In Itaewon, which we live closest to, was really the international food scene in Korea. You can get any kind of food you want. In fact, one of our favorite restaurants was a Hungarian restaurant right there, and it had some of the best European food you could eat.
You kidding?
No, tremendous food
in Mexico.
No, I'm talking Korea. I switched.
Oh,
back.
Korea. Oh, you went to Korea. Okay.
I went back to
I was
Korea.
watching Frank.
Yeah,
Tried to.
Sorry. Yeah.
He's still watching the recipe on pork roast over here.
Roger, we have Roger Van Cleve watching from New York. Hello, Roger. John McGuire watching us from the New England, Boston area in Arley Bragg, somewhere in close to Nashville. What is that little town? Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
north,
Arley
yeah.
Bragg watching us from those areas. We appreciate you watching us, gentlemen. You're watching with us, retired Lieutenant Colonel.
I wonder if the guy from
Jay Land.
Boston is still drunk after the Patriots won that one.
Well, I'm sure he is.
You know,
Probably.
He was very boisterous.
I found myself
after it.
pulling for the Pats. I'm a huge Saints fan. If the Saints won every Super Bowl from here on out, I wouldn't be disappointed. But
Well, they won't. They won't because the refs hate them, obviously.
Yeah, the Saints got robbed.
They did.
And,
No, we don't want to talk about Saints. We don't want to talk about Saints.
We should have played harder, but they truly got robbed on this one. But if they would have played harder the other 3 quarters, it would have been. That's another thing.
Exactly.
So
right.
I was glad to see the Patriots take that one.
So in once in Korea, when
We're back in Korea.
we're back
Yeah.
into Korea. This
Very
is
quick.
I'm confused.
this is just all over the
From
world.
Boston to
You see, that's
Seoul.
why I was trying to make notes and trying to make a linear
It's
interview,
Frank's
but
fault.
but
Yeah.
you've been well. That's part of it. That's okay. But you've just been all over the world.
Well, we
I
haven't
didn't-
covered
I
the
didn't
other
realize
countries.
it. Well, we're not going to go there.
Italy, Germany,
Well,
England.
we don't have time. It's only an hour show.
Japan.
But let's go to Korea because
Okay,
we're
back
going
in
to talk
Korea.
because we're trying to get
Get
to
the
Korean.
barbecue. And
We're trying to get
the
to
thing
Korean
you gotta remember
barbecue.
about Korean barbecue is it's not necessarily barbecue like we Americans know.
Yeah, let's just jump into it.
You don't go in and see a big pit smoker. You go out to Texas, some of the finer places, you get your tray, you get your butcher paper, you walk up and you point at the ribs or the brisket or the beef ribs, whatever you want, and they throw it on your plate, give you some beans and some slaw and some white bread, and there you go. Yeah. Korean barbecue is very different. The Koreans really did not become the Koreans were still a third world country until the late 80s. Once the 88 Olympics came to town, that was really the turning point for Seoul. It was called the Miracle on the Han. Yeah. They were very impoverished. When they split the country, North Korea got a lot of the industry, a lot of the farmland. It's just kind of the way it shook out. But the Koreans are very industrious, and so they began working diligently to catch up with the rest of the world, and they really got a spur when the 88 Olympics came to town. So from then on, Korea's really taken off. But one of the basic staples of Korean food, and I've got some over here, although you won't open it because it doesn't smell that great, is kimchi.
Yeah, what is kimchi,
Kimchi
in
is-
American?
It's
American, what is it?
It's
Kimchi.
fermented cabbage. They take cabbage.
I thought it had kind of a funky smell
Cabbage
when
from-
you
Well,
brought it in.
it's funky is funky is not.
I was
the
being
word.
nice. I was being nice.
But it tastes so good. But they're, until recently, they were stuck eating mostly vegetables or seafood because Korea is surrounded on 3 sides by the ocean.
That's called a peninsula.
Correct, the
Okay.
Korean Peninsula. So there wasn't a lot of pork and beef until relatively recently. So you come in, you want some good Korean barbecue. They've got a little plate the size of a hubcap, a little grill the size of a hubcap that they'll place in the middle of your table, and they will either fire it with a little pail of hot coals or gas fire.
Uh-huh.
So they come in, they put the heat source in your little grill, then they put the grill on top of it, and it's not a grill like we think with the slats. It's basically a big piece of metal with holes cut in it so the heat goes through.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring a big tray of meat out, beef, pork, whatever you've ordered.
And what's that? And that's called
Bulgogi.
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 Or, and there's other words, but I won't
So
share.
really, Jay, it's and the reason I'm interested in this is, do we have one in town yet? Do we have a?
Dayback has been, promising to open up for months now.
Right,
Not
that's the
sure
one
where
over
they're
by
at.
Publix off of.
Right,
Oh,
right.
okay.
We got a really good Korean restaurant that's right off the head of Brainerd Road. It's across from the little shopping center where the military recruiting place is, right at the head of of Brainerd Road. So if you come off 153, you go down
Lee Highway.
Yep. So like you're going down to Brainerd Road, you make that massive shopping center, turn left. There's a Red Wing shoe store there.
Uh-huh.
It's called Soul Food, SEOUL, Soul Food.
Soul Food.
And it is. Hey, tell them I'll call them back. We're getting popular. But it's ran by this sweet little old Ajima, and an Ajima is a respectful term for older lady. Mm-hmm. So a real sweet little Ajima from a little town called Pyeongtaek, which is about 25, 30 miles south of Seoul proper. And she has got some great Korean food. Now, she doesn't prep the bulgogi sitting there on your table. She brings it out to you, but it's got a nice, rich, smoky charcoal flavor over rice. And then you got all the banchan, the kimchi.
Banchan being...
Banchan are all the... If you ever go eat Korean food, they will bring out first little tiny bowls of little assorted sides. The basic one is kimchi. I'm forgetting the names of the others, but just a bunch of food you just kind of eat. So the way you eat Korean barbecue, they'll bring out lettuce leaves or sesame leaves, and you take a piece of meat that you've grilled because you got your grill there. So you pick your meat, put it on there, and you turn it over till it's done to your liking. Put it on there, maybe a little bit of rice, a little bit of kimchi, a little bit of grilled garlic, and you roll it up into like a little vegetable leaf taco and eat it.
Oh, okay.
So they come out with a huge plate of meat, a huge plate of vegetable leaves, and a huge thing of banchan, and you sit there for an hour and just gorge.
Wow. So what? So now, I'm not a traveler. I am, guys. I am the least worldly person you've ever met. I mean, I think going to College Dale is too far. Okay, go. When you're sitting at the table at I guess an American or in Korea, do they in Korea do they let you cook it yourself?
You can.
So they do have that.
It depends on where you go. Some of the ajimas will come out and kind of take it away from you and do it. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the restaurant.
So here at stateside, to me, I saw a picture. Just looking at it online and stuff like that, you see pictures of it.
A small table.
Yeah, a round table with a little grill. Looks like it's that big around.
Yep, that's about right.
And then so they'll bring you the food, and you can
go to town.
Just go to town on it.
Go to town.
So why do they call it barbecue?
I don't know.
Because it's not.
That's a good question.
I mean,
it's cooked over charcoal, depending on where you go.
Well, it's called grilling.
Not our version of barbecue.
Yeah.
But see, you got to remember, America is popular over the. Now, there's folks that don't like America, but that's everywhere. But America is very popular there. So many times they want to be like us. And so I guess that's the closest they got until Linus, and we'll talk about Linus.
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a minute.
Linus got there. My brother from a Korean mother, Korean national, raised here in Birmingham, Alabama, made it back to Korea several years ago, and he's opened a very successful American barbecue restaurant. But until Linus got there, they really didn't know what good barbecue was. So it's just.
It sounds to me they didn't know what barbecue was.
Well, they don't.
Yeah. I mean,
they don't.
Of course.
But you got to remember, they eat mostly vegetables and fish. And until recently, even having pork or beef was a luxury.
Yeah.
Korea was pretty much wiped off the earth 50 years ago, both North and South. It was just a savage war. And still, as you go into North Korea, you see they have far less trees than South, because the South made a very concerted effort to replant and repopulate their trees, while the North Koreans was cutting down, and they still do, for the most part. They cut down everything they can to burn in their stove to keep them warm or to eat.
Yeah.
That socialist communist paradise that we call North Korea is not nearly as successful as some people would like to think. So, but South Korea has made tremendous leaps and bounds, but it's still really relatively recent that they had the abundance of pork and beef that they want. In fact, my friend Linus, he brings all of his beef into Korea from America.
Obviously, it's shipped over
Yep.
cold. But I see buying briskets and pork butts and
Yeah.
just like we
Just like you do for Owl's Nest.
really.
So he brings it in, and it's actually cheaper because of the way they cut the beef over there. One beef is probably 3 times as expensive in Korea as it is here, and they use their meat differently. So if he went to buy a brisket there, he would get strips of brisket that had been cut up. Whereas when we're doing a brisket, we want it so
Whole brisket.
so we can trim a little bit here and a little bit there, and we got the flat and the tip, and we
Yeah.
can put our secret seasonings and the mojo on it, and then we can slow smoke it all day long. Well, to get that, he had to come back to America and set up with an American exporter to bring the beef in, and it still comes out cheaper and better.
So he's got a supply line here.
He's got a huge supply line. He sourced his cookers from Texas.
Talk about that, because that's one of the most interesting parts, I think, is how he got the
he
smokers and how he procured them and how he got them over there.
Talking
Yeah,
real
he-
stick burners
Well,
from
we're
Texas?
talking real,
Stick
no
burners.
kidding, stick burners like you see on barbecue pit masters or name your show.
Propane tanks, cut up, welded.
No, these are the big box ones.
Okay, gravity feed.
They're gravity feeds. So he brought them over. He started with one, and he worked it, and he's got a line out of his door every day about an hour and a half.
So they
on
love
average
it.
weight. Oh,
they love it over there.
The Koreans go wild for it. They love it. He consistently has a line out the door an hour and a half a day. So once he reached scale on the first one, he brought another one over and put that to work. Well, then he decided he didn't have enough room, so he knocked out a wall and put another smoker in. So he had 2 smokers, and he started running those to max capacity, and then he didn't know what to do next. Well, he went down and rented another building and turned it into the smokehouse. So he had another 2 he had another 2 shipped over, and it's about a 5-minute walk from the smokehouse to the restaurant. So
this guy's basically the famous Dave
no,
of South Korea.
No, famous Dave. I got sick at don't sue me, but I got sick like a dog at Famous Dave.
Well,
So
I'm talking about.
he's the Myron Mixon.
How he did it.
He's the Myron Mixon.
Well, I'm
Korea.
just talking about the location. I mean,
Yeah.
he's serving the masses.
Oh, absolutely.
Barbecue.
Absolutely. So he knocked out that wall, put in another 2 smokers, and that was a trip unto itself because they're on the 2nd floor. So they had to take a crane and crane his 2
my gosh.
smokers in. But Linus is very, very accomplished. He's been involved with teams. He's won a couple of divisions in Memphis and May. He is no joke.
Yeah,
So you see this Korean dude that speaks
very good English.
American English with a little bit of an
American
accent.
English. Yeah.
And it's like, why is this Korean guy, why is he sounding, like hee-haw? But then he'll kick over into Korean, and, yeah, it's amazing, this guy.
Hey, let's take a real quick break. We got to hit a commercial break here. You're listening to the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show. Our special guest tonight is retired Lieutenant Colonel Jay Land, and he is talking and keeping us up to date with Korean barbecue over there and over here. We'll be right back. Whether you're heading to a barbecue competition or just to the local grocery store, you can get there with confidence on a set of Michelin tires from Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ottawa. Light truck, SUV, and minivans, Michelin has a tire to fit every need. High mileage tires and high performance. Hey, it's your choice. And never a charge to install your new tires. At Steve Ray's Midnight Oil, we carry more brands of tires and more tires to fit every budget than anybody. We also have mechanics on duty 6 days a week when you need that alternator, wheel bearings, or water pump replaced. So make a note out there. We're located right off I-75 on exit 11 in Ottawa, Tennessee. So no matter if you live here or if you're just passing through and needing help, you know we're here at Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ottawa for 35 years.
Steve Ray in Ottawa for 35 years.
Yeah, I've been here longer than you were in the service.
That's true.
So in '89, I was just about 5-6 years into my career.
Nice.
So,
And now here
but I
you
haven't
are,
retired.
barbecue master.
Yeah, we have one thing in common: we know how to cook barbecue.
That's true.
But I learned it all here.
I had to go to Korea to learn how to cook good American.
Isn't that
barbecue.
funny? I was just getting ready to say, how did you hook up with Linus? Was it over here in the States or over there in Korea?
It was over there. We'd been over there for a couple of weeks, and one of my officers was like, "Hey, you have got to try this place. It's great." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So we
Yeah.
finally stopped in there one night.
Everybody's always got the best place to eat.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, it knocked my socks off. I'm like, "Man, this is good." And I've eaten some good barbecue. I spent a decent amount of time in Texas. I've eaten at Cooper's. It's one of my
Yeah.
Army mentors' friends is the cooper behind the Coopers, and I've eaten my fill at Cooper's. And if you ever go out to Llano, Texas, make sure you go to Cooper's and get the cabrito, the goat. But go to Laird's Brisket. It's in a little house off the main drag. It's a house, and all Mr. Laird does is cook brisket.
That's it.
That's all he cooks. He's got a cinder block fire pit, and he starts cooking about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning on average, and it's ready at lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the best brisket you will ever eat. But Cooper's was delicious. Laird's. I've eaten some great barbecue. So I go in and I eat, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
smacks, this is great.
Did you just say, man, I can't believe I found this place? It's
Well,
just
I'm like, I can't believe,
like home.
I can't believe there's this much good barbecue in in Korea.
A full world away.
Right. So a couple of weeks later,
In case you're wondering, it's 20 minutes until 10 in the morning in
Yeah,
Korea. If you're wondering how far away it is,
I tried to call Linus, he wouldn't answer.
well, that's okay. He's probably sleeping
He's,
still.
he's probably firing his pits.
Yeah.
But a couple of weeks later, we're at a social engagement. My wife was a member of the American Wives Club, and somebody's like, hey, Linus is here. And I turn around, I go up, and I start talking to him, and we just hit it off. We became really good friends really quick. And I found myself, it was a 5-minute walk from my house there in Yongsan. So I found myself at Linus's on a regular basis, and we just became very good friends.
Yeah.
And, I'd spend a lot of time back there with him, just learning how he does business. And then he hooked me up with a guy named Skip Steele. He's a Memphis and May Grand champion a couple of times. Skip owned Pappy's Barbecue and Bogart's Barbecue there in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Skip is Linus's mentor, and I ended up traveling back and forth from Korea to St. Louis a couple of times, headed down to Fort Leonard Wood, and Skip always made me feel at home. I had more Pappy's or Bogart's than I could eat, which is a crime. I wanted to take it with me, but I had nowhere to put it. But I just, I was privileged to know what good barbecue tasted like, and then have a mentor like Linus. Who he would come over to my house on a Saturday, and I would have my little $100 smoker out there, Outback Weber smoker, and I would start a brisket about 5 in the morning, and
Yeah.
Linus would come show up, and I've got a Memphis and May Bubba that's over there helping me do my brisket on my little $100
Yeah.
stick burner.
So you would try to? Did you have to get your brisket from Linus
Yeah,
over there?
yeah.
And he'd hook you up on it.
Well, I'd go get some brisket from Linus, or occasionally the commissary would have some good brisket. But I'd go over to Linus's and take one of my duffel bags and fill it up with firewood, and walk back to my house and start cooking. And Linus would come over a little bit later in the day once the restaurant was going the way he needed it to go, and we'd spend an afternoon sitting out in my backyard, just me doing a brisket.
So you had what's the scenario in Korea for a serviceman, a lieutenant colonel? I guess you're a lieutenant colonel there, weren't you?
I was.
I mean, you got a house,
Yeah, I lived on post.
so they have a parsonage, for lack of a better word.
Well, they've got military housing.
Okay.
Senior leaders, we were required to stay on post due to some of the duties we had.
Have little yards, front yard, backyard.
I had a little apartment. I had a front yard, a backyard, all fenced in, and I had a pretty good little thing. I lived very close to the back corner of the installation, so I could just walk right outside the gate and be in Itaewon. So imagine you walk out of your house here, and you walk 5 minutes down the road, and you're in the middle of New York City, and you can see everything and do everything, and then you come back in and go through a gate on a big fence that surrounds the installation, and it's like you're in the middle of Central Park. It's nice and quiet, tree lined. It's just beautiful. So I had the best of both worlds.
So when you left those gates, though, what did I mean? Do you get up in the morning is it like a 9 to 5? Frank, if you're trying to find the feed, you're gonna have to go to my Facebook page.
No,
because
no.
it's not gonna be on the other ones.
Korea was like being deployed back to Iraq. Technically, we are still at war with North Korea. South Korea, it's only an armistice. Armistice. And we always used to joke that it was like a deployment, except you got all the booze you could drink, unless you're on an exercise, and your family could be there.
Mm-hmm.
You could let your hair down occasionally on weekends, but I'd be in at work, 5 or 6 in the morning, and I'd get home 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night.
And what would you do? I mean, you sit there and you monitor. I mean,
Well, my first year, I was the 8th Army Explosive Ordnance Disposal Officer, so I was the senior bomb tech for the Korean Peninsula within the Army.
Mm-hmm.
So I managed through my EOD control team. I had a great staff. I managed the operations of EOD disposal. We've still got thousands and thousands of mines up along the DMZ that are still there from the Korean War. So we were actively pulling mines out of the ground and blowing them up.
Still,
Yeah, there's millions. We'll never get rid of them.
really?
Yeah, I got pictures on the phone. I'll
Wow.
show you. But at the same time, I was in the Army. When they give you more than one job, they say you're dual-hatted. Well, I was dual-hatted as the deputy protection officer. So I ran what they call the air missile defense operations for 8th Army, some of the MP protection operations for 8th Army, as well as the EOD, and then the chemical for 8th Army. So I managed at a high level a staff that coordinated with the 2nd Infantry Division, the 210th Field Artillery, the 35th ADA, and all these cats and dogs units that are there to ensure that we are as protected in Korea as possible. If a missile goes up, I can make sure that 8th Army is providing the right information up to higher U.S. Forces Korea, and then down to the 2ID and the 35th and et cetera.
When back home, when the North Koreans would do
Missile tests.
missile
Nuke
tests
tests.
and things like that, everybody here freaking out. Media
Business as usual.
is it? I mean, the media is saying we're all going to die. They're doing a test. We're all going to die. This is horrible.
They get paid to generate web clicks.
So it's nothing. I mean, you guys are over there just saying, okay, we got to watch these guys.
I'll give you two. Now, we do go into a state in a state of heightened alert. I'll give you an example. I was out eating. They got great sushi over there too. That's a whole other show.
Focus, man.
Live
We're
octopus.
trying to save the
You ever had
peninsula.
live
Sushi, not
octopus?
barbecue.
No, I've seen.
You've seen the.
It's
seen
not
the
really
video?
live
No,
octopus. It's
just chopped up. It was
know.
live until 30 seconds ago.
because it's the nerves. I've heard about that.
Yeah, well, I'll show you. I got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, whole other story. Another Owl's Nest story.
More
But,
Korean barbecue.
So I'm eating my sushi, and my phone starts just blowing up. I'm getting 3 or 4 calls. I'm like, it must be important. They're like, hey, sir, you need to get back to the office. We just had a nuclear test. Holy hell! Well, it was controlled. I won't say chaos. It was controlled urgency. Everybody knew what they needed to do, and everybody was doing it. We were ensuring that the commanding general had all he needed to know, so he could brief what was going on, and it was controlled urgency. But everybody knew their job, and everybody did it. And then several months later, we're kicking off our big exercise, Ulchi Focus Guardian. UFG, it's an exercise that takes place until recently every August. I was still at Yongsan taking care of business before deploying down to link up with the rest of the team for the exercise. And the North Koreans snuck some landmines under the fence within the MDL. So you had the DMZ, and then you had the military demarcation line that goes down the middle. And there's a big fence that runs down the middle. So the North Koreans had snuck landmines under our side of the fence. And so 2 ROK soldiers, when they're coming through the fence, remember when you were watching my retirement ceremony and General Martin had started talking about soldiers that lost their limbs
Yeah, I do remember
they had
that.
stepped on those landmines.
Oh, my
So I
gosh.
had to take one of my teams and attach them up to the Korean forces to work with the UN forces to understand exactly what explosives had been passed under the fence. Was it an IED? Was it a landmine? And are we clear? Is there, what else do we need to do? Well, it turned out to be two Russian box-made mines. Two rock soldiers, Sergeant Kim and Sergeant He, lost. One lost his foot at the ankle, and one lost his leg from the mid shin all the way
So
down.
when that happens, do you retaliate?
The South Koreans voiced their displeasure, and there was some gunfire that was exchanged across the border, and
Yeah.
it was, General Scaparrotti was on the phone with I can say all this now because it's public knowledge.
Yeah.
But you got General Scap on the phone with President Obama, and we've got we're prepared. We're ready to go. So it was a good thing I was still in Yongsan because I was able to go in and work with my guys. Again, I had a great team there in Yongsan, and we were able to put guys on the spot and figure out what's going on and advise the boss on what we need to do next.
Wow, that is a day in the life. You can X that out. That's one of my.
And now I'm
things,
back in Ultawal at the Owl's Nest.
Yeah.
It's a little bit slow here.
How's that working for you?
A little bit slow here, Steve.
Yeah, sorry. I don't have a landmine laying around I can let you dance around. Thank goodness. So it's just you never know what's
You
gonna
never
happen.
know what's going to happen.
So what about the throwdown now? You got your little backyard. Is it big as how big?
It's a pretty decent sized backyard.
Okay. Grass?
Grass. Are you talking about
You
the
have to
one in
mow it?
Korea or the one
no,
here?
No, not the one here, the one in Korea.
No, we got the Ajishis. We had the post employed local civilians that would come in and maintain the lawns and all that. So the little Ajishi would open the gate and mow the yard. And
Say grass.
yeah.
So you had a little smoker out
Yeah,
back?
a little Weber stick smoker.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
put in one end and it feeds through. Yeah.
Yeah. And
fancy.
did you have a grill too? Or did you use
Nah,
that?
I just use that one.
Use
thing.
that one, yeah. And did all your buddies ever come over for Saturday afternoon
Oh, yeah.
grilling? And
Once they figured out I could cook a brisket,
oh my,
they would.
you're the
come-
star. You're the star of the peninsula. I
Especially in
guess,
a
aren't you?
hubcap, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I did this on my stick burner.
kidding.
You can't do brisket on a, and then they figured out that Linus is because Linus is among the Americans, the expats. They know, they recognize Linus can cook some barbecue. So then all my friends, if you have food, soldiers love you. If you have good food, they really love you.
Yeah.
So once they figured I had good food and that Linus was hanging out at my house,
It's a winner.
oh yeah, they're all coming. They'd show up with a 6-pack of beer. They'd show up with just random brown liquor, whatever they wanted, because they knew they were going to get fed. And
Sure.
yeah, it was a good time.
Life was good.
It was.
Well, we're talking with Lieutenant Colonel retired Jay Land, who is now. Let's fast forward to Chattanooga. Where are you gainfully employed now?
I have taken the position of the Chief Operating Officer of Precision Products Incorporated down in Dalton. It's really an American success story. The founder and owner, a guy named David Davis, we grew up together. There was a little group of us that kind of migrated all the way up from middle school through, and David found himself a few years after high school as a machinist, realized that he could do it better. And so he opened his own shop right up on 58 in the old Roberts Garage.
Yeah.
His dad gave him $80,000 to get started. He bought a mill and a lathe, the manual conventional mill and lathe. 26 years later, almost 27 years later, we got a 300,000 square foot plus facility with state-of-the-art CNC machinery, computerized numerical control.
There you go. You got
So
it.
that we make parts that fit within 0.003 of an inch, thinner than your hair. And that's pretty thin these days,
Yeah.
Steve. Just succumb and shave it.
It's looking better than yours,
Anyway.
Lieutenant Colonel.
Anyway, we digress. But Davey has put together an incredible operation. We make parts for everyone from Shaw and Mohawk to Pirelli Tire, Nike, Lockheed Martin. We have parts that support our military, parts that go into M&M Mars, candy machines that make your candy bars, parts that make your shoes at Nike. It's just an incredible place. So Davey scaled it up, and we are looking to grow the business even further than we have it now. So he brought me in as his COO. One thing I've picked up along the years besides tasting good food and blowing stuff up is a little bit of operational and organizational leadership. So Davey's brought me in to help figure out what we need to double our business in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
And the thing Frank and Jay are talking about his for career from just getting started. The one thing that has been constant is your love of food, especially barbecue.
Oh yeah.
And that is what's so neat about this hobby that we do, is we experienced the different kinds here, Korean barbecue, and then you go to Korea and you experience some of the best American barbecue
in Korea.
that you've ever had, and you go half a world away and it's there.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just that's an incredible. It's an incredible food that started.
Well, it shows why America's great.
Yeah.
Really, he has spread. And Linus started. Now there's other people there now. After Linus came on the scene, and these other people saw the lines that Linus has.
Oh, sure.
There's other places there, and they compete. They try real hard, but they can't quite get
Not up to Linus quality.
Yeah, I mean they just, I don't want to say they take shortcuts, but they do things different, and they don't have the knowledge base. So right before I left, Linus opened his second location, whereas at the original Linus, the focus is on brisket and pork ribs. The new Linus is focused on chicken and sausage. And we don't buy sausage. We take the scraps and the trimming from our pork butts. And I say our. I'm sure Linus is watching and laughing. We took the
that
scraps.
mouse in your pocket.
I wonder where are you?
The French mouse in my pocket. So we took the scraps from all the beef brisket, all the pork that we cooked, and we made that into sausage. We got a beef-based sausage and a pork sausage, and it's all natural casings. Everything's brought in from the States. So literally from weighing out the spices, because when you're making sausage, because I make some at the house now, I'm doing some charcuterie, you have to get it by the gram. So you have to be very exact, or people will get sick. It'll either come out really bad and you don't want to taste it. It'll be mealy, or people get sick. Either one is bad. So from developing the recipe and the weights and the calculations to taking the trimmings and the fat and grinding it through multiple times and then stuffing it by hand into all natural casings and then curing it and then drying it and then smoking it, so that when you put it on somebody's plate and they hit it with that knife and pull the knife across, it pops. It's some good sausage.
Yeah.
And he calls it like the Colonel's Own, or so he named it after me for some reason.
You talk about sausage. I had a buddy of mine sent me some sausage for Christmas from the South Side Barbecue down in Texas.
Right.
And I tell you, I like that sausage. I like it better than barbecue. I mean, I'm talking about better than brisket,
If you do
chicken,
it right.
or pork. I mean, it's
Well,
out of this world.
It's because it's all the above. It's the trimmings, because sausage started as quote unquote junk food.
Scrap.
Yeah.
Scrap.
No good, especially back in the day.
But the taste is just incredible. And
But
that
it
little
started as
snap.
scrap.
Yeah, that snap you're talking
You
about.
only get that from a natural casing.
Yeah. And apparently that's what they use, because it
don't
had
get
that
it.
snap in it.
Yep.
And it is, I mean, it's fan. If you said, hey, let's go down to Jim and Nick's, or let's go down to Couches or somewhere, and they had sausage, I'm eating sausage.
I tell you what,
I'm not even messing around with the barbecue.
If you've never been to Texas, if you've never been to Llano, Texas, fly into Austin or San Antonio, you drive an hour and a half to either southwest or northwest, depending on which airport. Go to Cooper's. Cooper's has some outstanding sausage. Get there early and you get the goat, the cabrito. That's some of the best picking you'll get.
Wow.
Well, if I get to college, I'm doing good. Jaylan, thank you very much for being here.
Yes.
Man, I
You don't know how much we appreciate it. Yep, thanks for
very
everything
much.
you did to protect us from bombs and mean North Koreans. We appreciate that very much, because I'm sure those little rascals are They're hungry.
Scheming right now.
They're hungry and they're cold and they're probably want to take it out on somebody.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want it to be me.
I don't think they really want to take it. They just want to get away.
I don't
mean,
blame 'em.
if you read some of the stuff, we had the news tells you about some of the North Korean escapes. Well, we had far more attempts than the news will ever tell you because those people are hungry for freedom.
Should have let them
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
If they can get over the fence, will you let them
Impressed.
stay?
The people are hungry for freedom.
Bring them here and feed them barbecue, right?
As long as they come in.
Take them to
legally.
Linus. They don't have to go far.
Yeah, they got they
All they gotta do is go
come
to
through-
Seoul.
They got to come through our wall legally.
Legally. You're right.
Hey, thank you very much. Next week, now remember, we're going to be starting, everything will be originating from the Owl's Nest barbecue page. So we want you to go to that page and like it. Tell your friends in South Korea to go to the Owl's Nest barbecue page.
We're gonna get
We're going to get
Linus
Linus on the line here and someday. And make
What-
sure you like the
What's
Owl's
about
Nest
getting
barbecue.
Skip still? How about that?
Okay, that's fine. I'm doing a bit here right now. Okay.
Okay, I like interrupting you though because your face,
And you're doing a real good job,
face
too.
gets all.
Red and crinkly.
Squirmy.
Yeah. So, like the Owl's Nest barbecue page, next week we're going to have some giveaways. Frank, I even told you this way. We're going to have some.
We're going to have some
We're
giveaways.
going to be giving away some Butcher barbecue products. And here's our guest next week. Now, you're great. Don't get me wrong. You're great.
And certainly
I mean,
a
you're-
different twist.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you're great in a different way. Okay. You're great. You're great. Great.
Even though you do talk
Great
about
guy.
the host sometimes.
Great guy. Great guy. Bad hair, but great guy. We got Robbie Royal from Rescue Smokers from Sycamore, Georgia, will be our guest via the telephone and I hope via Skype next Wednesday. Now, if you're a fan of Butcher, or if you're a fan of Barbecue Pit Masters,
Yep.
if you're a fan of the Pig Jig down in Vidalia, in that area of South Georgia, Robbie Royal is
The stuff.
it's Myron Mixon, Robbie Royal, Myron Mixon, Robbie Royal, Myron Mixon. These two guys are neck and neck in the competitions down there, and he will be our exclusive guest next Wednesday night here on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show.
Cool.
But when you get Myron, I'm coming back,
Well, that's a possibility. That's a possibility.
and maybe
You
when
never
Frank's
know.
sick, I can come sit in Frank's chair.
You could.
Gladly.
You could.
Gladly.
You could. Absolutely. We got to go. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for listening. Jay Land,
Hey, thank you so much. for
man,
having me.
you were
absolute privilege.
You were
Sure.
just
Thank you.
just fantastic, and you don't know how much we appreciate that. And I need a new machine because I'm not doing it real
Technology.
I
You want
know.
me to sing us off? I
no.
can sing us off.
well. No, we're good.
Lemonade.
With a Korean
That
barbecue.
cool,
bo-
refreshing drink.
We're good. All right, everybody, we got to go. This should be plenty.
That's all, folks.
We'll see you next Saturday here on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show with our special guest, Robbie Royal. Stay with us next Wednesday.